In today's video, I'll show you the closest thing that I think there is to a volatility crystal ball, if you will. That is, using clues that shape up in the first 30 minutes after the market opens to try and make some sort of prediction of volatility for the rest of the day. Now, I'll show you an example using today's activity. It was a great example, and we're going to go through the 4 different index markets. We'll cycle through ES, the Dow futures, then the Nasdaq futures, and the Russell futures. So we'll look at all 4 of the index markets, and our goal here is to try and spot any volatility clues that we had at the end, or rather beginning of the 7 a.m. Pacific mark. So this is after the markets open at 6:30 a.m. Pacific. We wait for that 30-minute period to end. We extrapolate to this full hour, so we have the 6 to 7 a.m. Pacific mark. And I'll show you how this hour gives you a lot of very interesting clues that I've found to be very useful when you're trying to make a good plan for the rest of the day, especially if you trade volatility. Now to get started, let's look at the S&P 500 first. And for all 4 of these markets, I'm going to look at them through the lens of our scalper volatility box models. Now, if you're an ES trader or an S&P trader, you can use either ES for this exercise, the micro ES futures, or SPX. So take your pick and you can perform the same exercise I'm going to take you through. Now, at 7 a.m. Pacific, you'll see with our volatility box models, we have this yellow line that plots, and it says VB test. That's nothing fancy. It's just a line that plots every single day at 7 a.m. Pacific, and that's your reminder that, hey, this is your time to do the volatility test. Figure out which, if any, market is giving you any clues. Now, what do I mean by clues? Well, if in this market, in this hour, excuse me, this particular market breaches either side's volatility box models, that's the cyan line, that's your clue that, hey, there's some sort of volatility in this particular market, and you need to pay attention to it. What I mean by pay attention to it is once we breach these cyan lines, we need to see what's happening here. Are the bulls in control? Can they defend this level? Are the bears in control? Do they continue to go outside of the volatility box clouds? Or do we see just price hold sideways, a lot of weakness, and we need to wait until the next hour to see which direction the bulls or the bears are going to take us? Now, if you see what happened in the case of the S&P, which is price just trading inside of our volatility box zones, that's your very clear sign that, hey, little volatility today, at least so far in the morning in the S&P 500. So far, the scalper volatility box model is being respected. Look for scalp opportunities. Now, if we perform the same exercise inside of the Dow, you should notice something similar. The Dow had a little bit more volatility. We got closer to the upper volatility box models, but we still did not hit the cyan entry line. So one more time, the Dow is telling you, hey, it's okay to continue to scalp. Now we move on to the Nasdaq, and you should notice something different. Inside of the Nasdaq, we breach our lower volatility box models. So as I mentioned, this now triggers our test. We need to see who's in control. Are the bulls in control? Can they defend price here and take us up from this direction? Are the bears in control and they push us outside of our clouds, which would then mean that, hey, the scalper models are not being respected in the Nasdaq and we need to move down the line? Or do we see price just chop around sideways and now we need to wait into the next hour? Now, in the case of the Nasdaq, we saw very quickly the buyers came in and took us up the same distance. We were looking for about 31 points here in the Nasdaq, and in this leg up, we went all the way up to 42. So very easily hitting what we wanted to see as proof from the bulls as strength. Now, this so far has given us the clues between the 3 markets we looked at that if you had to group the markets, ES, YM together on that lower volatility side, and NQ on its own on the high volatility side. The last market we have now is the Russell, and if we look at the Russell in that same first half hour, we see price just chop around sideways, very similar to the ES. So far, out of the 4 markets we've seen, ES, YM, and Russell all have less volatility when you compare it to the Nasdaq. Why is this important, you might ask? Well, it gives you clues around what to expect for the rest of the day. If you look at the Russell, you look at the S&P 500, and you look at the Dow, for the most part, volatility was a little bit more systematic. Contrast this with the Nasdaq. Take a look at what happens in that very next hour. In the very next hour, we breach our volatility box models, the scalper ones, midway through the hour, and by 7:45, we've broken outside of the scalper. That's your very clear sign that there's more volatility inside of the Nasdaq compared to the S&P, where it took nearly the end of the hour for this to happen, and you contrast this with the Dow, where you didn't see this happen in the hour at all. We did not tag the cyan line. So that clue from the morning, the Nasdaq being more volatile, was, in my opinion, the closest hint, the closest little nudge that the market's giving you that, hey, so far out of the four index markets, this is the one that's shaping up to be a little bit more volatile. If you're a volatility trader, you like to trade 0 days to expiration options, this is your very clear sign of which market you might be wanting to play any kind of trend moves in. The market which might pay you in terms of those jolt moves, especially with options that reward you a little bit faster. So I think this neat little trick of using that first half hour, first full hour with the volatility box test is a very useful way, the closest thing I've found to that crystal ball, the volatility crystal ball. Trying to make some sort of guess here, some sort of prediction around where you think volatility might take price action and which market, if any, should be demanding more of your attention based off of your trading style. I hope you found this video helpful for all of our futures Volatility Box members. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email. Else, good luck trading, and I'll see you in our next update.